Hey everyone, so I want to show you today this is a Kurzweil K2000 synthesizer from 1991. It's in beautiful condition. It's 100% functional, and what I want to do today to this keyboard is I want to change the drive to a Gotek USB emulator. Now, as you can see, don't worry about this. Thing is, I'll be honest with you. I started to do this work and I started to shoot this video, but then I got into so much trouble that I just say I'm just going to figure this whole thing out, and then I'll make the video from scratch, and I'm gonna do it in English because I was doing that video in Spanish. Because there is a number of videos already on this matter, but what I found out was a lot of the information out there is misleading, and I really had a very hard time doing this, and I thought I'll just make the video in English so it can reach more people. I'm not saying that people out there making videos or instructionals in the web intentionally misleads. What happens is the way things work with this keyboard can lead people to believe that they have achieved something when they actually haven't. And so I'll go in detail. The first thing that I want to show you is how this thing looks open. Again, I already did this a number of times, and at this point I'm just going to show you the keyboard in the inside. I'm gonna cut the scene and you'll see the keyboard open and how the drive looks. Thing is, replacing the drive for the Gotek version is easy. That's the easy part, and I'm just going to fly over it and show you how things look inside. So it's now upside down. This is a great design. I mean, it's obviously very well engineered. This keyboard back in the day was extremely expensive. It was top of the line, and even today it's very sought after by musicians who still long for this sound of this keyboard. It's by far the easiest keyboard to take apart that I have. You have to remove 4 bolts. Actually, they are not screws, they are actual machine bolts, not like in other keyboards where the bottom plate is basically a sheet metal that is held in place with screws. These are actually bolts, machine bolts, and you need to remove guidance H6. This keyboard came only with 4, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it holds up very well, and this is a molded piece of plastic. And this keyboard specifically has this option added, which is a cooling fan. So you have to unplug that, and this is what you get. So now to the area of interest, right there. As you can see, I already removed the drive, and this is the original drive that came with the keyboard. Right? It's a floppy drive. It goes like this. Goes like this. It's bolted in 6 places. It has 6 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You remove all of that. You remove the cables. This ribbon cable and this little connector, and the drive comes off right away. That's not a problem. This is the easy part. This is a good part, and it's still working, right? So I'm going to replace that with this. This is something that you can get in Amazon all day long. It's about $20, and it feels cheap. It doesn't feel nearly as good as the old one in terms of quality and manufacture, but this is modern technology. This is a USB floppy emulator. Replaces the original floppy drive it takes the same connectors on this side, and you can stick a USB stick here, and you can format that stick to simulate a number of floppies. So essentially you insert the stick here, and then you can use these buttons to select different virtual floppies, and the machine will read whatever you select here. If you select floppy number 1, it will be like you have inserted floppy number 1. If you select number 2, it will be like it's selecting floppy number 2. Now, how you connect this? This is thing number 1 that I learned, and I'll bullet all these things in the description, because it's very valuable learning. So this connector is very easy. You have to connect this one with the red stripe looking in that direction, right? The direction of this big connector. So like this. This one is easy. But then you have the ribbon cable. This is the ribbon cable, and the ribbon cable has a red stripe on one side. So guidance on the internet say that you have to connect this ribbon like this, with the red stripe looking towards the power cable, the little small connector, like this. And then if you look at the drive has a notch here, right? And the ribbon has a tab here. So it makes all the sense of the world. You connect this ribbon like this, making the tab match the notch. But that is the wrong way. That makes the whole thing not to work. And I'll show you. I'll connect it with the red stripe looking at the little connector, and with the tab sticking into the notch on the housing, and I'll show you what happens. Yep. This green light is always lit. That is wrong. And I push the buttons and nothing happens. So this is wrong. This is not how it's supposed to work. I'm gonna turn it off. And now I'm going to pull the ribbon cable, turn it upside down, with the notch not matching, with the tab in the ribbon not matching the notch in the drive, like this. Turn it on, and it's off. This is the right way to connect the drive. If you do it the other way around, with the notch looking in the other direction, it will not work. Now, very important thing number 2 that I learned is the jumpers. The jumpers are little square bridges, conductive squares that you are supposed to push into any or some of the locations that are in that place, that specific place of the Gotek. So there is huge debate on the internet over what is the right position for those jumpers, and I experimented with many of them, and I came to the conclusion that you want to put only one jumper at the S0. You can make it work with S0 plus some other positions. Some positions will make S0 not work, the drive not work at all. Some positions will make the thing look like it's working. You can flip the folders, but then when you want to load a file, you need to do some gymnastics with the USB, pull it, push it, and some people is just happy with that and they make it work that way, but that is not correct. You want to stick your USB, be able to flip the folders with the buttons, and then load that folder with your Kurzweil. So the way to do it is only one jumper at the S0 position. Now, there is room for this being dependent on the Kurzweil model or the operative system. Mine specifically is operative system 1.30, it's an early one, and for me it's working with only one jumper at the S0 position, which is third from the left. Useful thing number 3 that I learned: pre-thread the holes in the Gotek. This Gotek drive is nothing, the housing is nothing more than a plastic casting. The orifices are nothing more than holes in the plastic housing. So it's very convenient if you take the little screws that come with the drive and pre-thread the holes. So you build threads on the plastic, so it's much easier when you want to mount. The original drive was steel and it had threaded holes on the metal structure. The new one is just plastic. So I advise to pre-thread those holes, make threads on them before you assemble. Okay, the Kurzweil is now in one piece and I think it's looking really neat. I really like the new Gotek Drive. It has this red LED display, very reminiscent of the 80s, that I really like. Now, a couple things about this Gotek Drive. It's don't take me wrong, it's a great tool, it's a great thing to have. It's much more reliable than the floppy disk drive and much more convenient because you can have hundreds of floppy disks in one single USB. But the documentation and the support for this drive is pretty much non-existent. The drive comes shipped with this sheet, which is kind of the user manual that is useless really. It does say here that you can get some software in that web address. Well, that's not true. You go there and there is nothing. So you need to find your own way to use the drive, go into the internet and download the software and whatnot. And when you finally are finished, this is a great thing to have, but it does cost some work to make it function. So, lesson number 4 that I learned. The Gotek Drive has a utility in its firmware that lets you format a USB stick into 1000 virtual floppy drives. And ideally, you should be able to then take the USB stick and stick it into your PC, your computer, and then save files, your keyboard files that your keyboard can read, into each one of those virtual floppies. Then take the USB back to your keyboard and load those files into the keyboard system. Well, I was never able to make that work. Let me format the floppy with the USB in. You turn off the keyboard, then you press both buttons, then you turn it on, and then this happens. It will count all the way up to 999. At that point, the USB stick will have a 1000 virtual floppies built into it. You are actually able to flip through those virtual floppies with the buttons, but then you take the USB stick back to the computer and you are not able to access 999 of the 1000 files. You are only able to access the first floppy, which is number 000. And that's where a lot of people in the internet gets it wrong, because people is able to use drive 000 to save files into it and then take the USB back to the keyboard and read those files and load those files into the keyboard. That works, and that's indeed by itself very good, because then you immediately have a way to move files from your computer to a keyboard, that's golden already. That's great. But you only have 1.44 megabytes out of an 8 gigabyte, 16 gigabyte USB stick, when you could have, in theory, 1000. So I will let the Gotek format that USB stick all the way up to 999, and at that point we will move the USB to the computer, and I'll show you what happens. Okay, it's done. It's now back down to 0, and I'll show you. You can flip through the virtual floppies with the buttons. So for the sake of experimentation, let's leave the USB stick at drive 5, and at this point let's pull the drive, and let's take it to a computer. I'll show you what happens. Okay, so we are now at the computer. This is an old Windows 7 computer that I have to run old software that does not run in modern computers, and some of the programs that we are going to be using do not indeed run in modern computers, so we are going to be using this old pink computer. So I have already introduced the thumb drive into the USB port, and as you can see, it shows as disk 000. We try to select this 5 on the Kurzweil. We pull the drive and stuck it in this computer, and it shows as 000. Some people online saying that you can select a different drive on the Kurzweil on the Gotek, and then come to a PC and it will show as that drive. So that is not happening. But this is already very good, because you can use this one virtual floppy to transfer files from your PC. We're going to select say this tree here, and you can save those files into this virtual floppy on the computer. You don't need any extra software, you don't need anything. You can even do this very same thing on a modern Windows 10, Windows 11 computer, and it works. In other words, you can format the drive in the Gotek, pull the drive, stick it in your computer. It will show as one virtual floppy, 1.4 megabytes, and you can put files in that virtual drive. Then you can pull the drive and take it back to the Gotek, and it will read it. And that's already great. That's already a great thing to do, or to be able to do, because now you don't need to depend on a mechanical floppy. A floppy nowadays costs just as much as an USB anyways, and this will let you transfer files between your PC and your keyboard without the need of an old computer or a special software. The only problem is you only have one. You only have one floppy, and you will be forced to move between the computer and the keyboard constantly. So at this point we are going to pull the floppy from the PC, and we are going to go back to the keyboard to show you that you can indeed read the files that we saved in this computer on the keyboard. Okay, we are now at the Kurzweil, the synthesizer. We're going to stick the drive in there, and we are going to select drive 00. You can select all the others, but we are not going to do that because we know that we are using drive 000. So now I'm going to take the camera. I'm going to come here, then I select disk, and it says floppy. I hit load, and there are my 3 files that you may remember from the computer. Okay, and I can click on one of those, right, and I'm gonna say load, Yeah, override. And it worked. I was able to transfer files. Here are my new sounds. I was able to transfer files from the PC to the keyboard without the need of any software, just by using that one single 1.4 megabyte virtual floppy that I can have just by formatting the drive with the keyboard. Now, as I said, we're going to try to go further down and try to have access to those 100 virtual floppy drives. We are back at the little pink computer, and in the next minutes I am going to show you how to build 100 virtual floppies into one USB stick to use in your Gotek Drive in your synthesizer. To do this, you will need an old computer. This is a Windows 7 computer. I tried to do this, what I'm going to do in the next several minutes. I tried to do this in a Windows 10 computer, and that didn't work. This is a Windows 7. I have this computer exclusively for running old programs for old hardware that no longer runs on modern computers. So that's one thing. You need an old machine. Also, you are going to need two programs that you can download from the internet. The first one is called USB Floppy Manager 2. It's also known as Batch Manage Tool, and it's also known as, and this is how you search for it in the internet, Floppy Emulator 1.3. So the first program is Floppy Emulator 1.3, okay, or 1.31. The version I found is 1.31, and it's working. And program number 2 is MagicISO. First, let's run Floppy Emulator. When you install this program, it shows as USB Floppy Manager 2. Don't ask me why. It has 3 different names in different parts of the computer and the program itself, and how you download it. You download it as Floppy Emulator 1.3 or 1.31, and when you install it, it shows as USB Floppy Manager. So we are going to run it now. Do not run it in compatibility mode. I am not running this program in compatibility mode. Again, this is an actual Windows 7 computer. And number 2, I am running this as an administrator, okay? So with that in mind, let's run the software. And the first thing that you want to do, ignore these drives in the window here. You are not going to see these drives in the window if you introduce a new USB stick. Thing is, I already did this, and that's why it's showing all those drives. But what you want to do first is you hit USB flash drive and then hit format. You select your USB stick, 1.44 megabytes, 100 here, that's the maximum number, 100, and then begin to format. You click OK, and it's going to format the drive into 100 virtual floppies. Okay, and only then is when those 100 floppies are going to show in your floppy emulator window. Again, the drives were already showing in my window because I already did this before. I was practicing and making sure it works. But in your case, when you stick the drive, you are not going to see any virtual floppy. Only after you format the USB stick in this way, you are going to see your 100 virtual floppies in the floppy emulator 1.3 window. So it's now reaching the end, and it's done. You click OK. You close this window, and now you are supposed to see these 100 virtual floppies here. Okay, it's 100 virtual floppies. So let's put this aside for a second, and now we run MagicISO. Click on try it. This is the trial version. When you download MagicISO, the installer is called setup_MagicISO. You install it and it shows as MagicISO. So when you run it, it says this is a trial version, but that's okay. The trial version, all it means is that the maximum disk image that it can make is 300 megabytes, which is big enough for what we want to do. So we click on try it, and this is my ISO window. So the next thing that you want to do is go to File, New, Disk Image, 1.44 megabytes. It's very important that you do this first, and that you do this next. I have some Kurzweil files here. These are sound files for the Kurzweil that I already downloaded from the internet. So I'm going to open this folder. I have a lot of KRC files in this folder, and I'm going to select all, and I'm just going to drag these files to this window in the MagicISO program, and this is what happens. Again, it is very important that you first go File, New, Disk Image, 1.44 megabytes, and then you drag the files into the window. That's lesson learned number 5 or 6, so I lost the count, but that is very important. I lost a lot of time here. You first start your new document, program, or image in this case, and then you modify that image by dropping files into the image. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit save, and I'm saving you select the folder where you want to save your disk image, and then you have to give it a name. I'm going to give it the name K1, and it is also very important, lesson learned number 6 or whatever number, give it an extension as well. As you can see, it says that you can save as IMA, BIV, WBT, IMG, etc. You usually in any other program be able to select the extension. In this case, how you determine the type of file is by just typing the extension. So I'm naming the file K1, and I'm typing the extension as well, .img. You go and hit save. I already have one name like that. You're gonna say yes, and so it worked. It already has made my K1 img. So I'm gonna do a few others. So File, New, Disk Image, 1.44. It starts a new image file, and now I'm going to go ahead and do K7. All right, so only 2 files in K7. You drag them here, you go and save, and it's going to be called K7.img. You have to type img, okay? Although if that's the last extension that you used, it automatically pre-populates that field, but you have to make sure it says .img. So hit on save again. It's now saving K7. I didn't have a K7, so I just went ahead and saved K7 in my folder. And I'm going to just go ahead and do K8 real quick. Alright, so I'll go back, K8, 2 files in K8, pull them, hit save, K8, and hit save. Alright, so before shooting the video, I did K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Uh, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quit MagicISO. It's important to quit the MagicISO software, or just move to a different image file, so it releases the image file that you are using, and then you return to your other program, Floppy Manager 2, and now we are going to write the images into the USB stick that now has 100 virtual floppies built in. You can see the used column says 0%, but now we are going to drop the image files on these virtual floppies. So I'm going to purposefully leave 000 alone. I'm not going to use 000, and I'm going to go ahead and use 001. You do write image and select one of your image files. I'm going to select number 1, and now the use percentage is 41%, so it worked. Now let's do the same with number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. As you remember, we did 1, 7, and 8 right here while we were talking. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit this this program, and I'm going to go now to the synthesizer. Okay, so let's stick the thumb drive in the Gotek Drive. Okay, and now let's see what happens. We selected 000. You remember we did not put anything on 000. So let's see how it behaves. Right, so I go to disk, floppy, load, no files. Okay, obviously, because I do not have any files on 000. But I select one, I'm sorry, I select 1, and now I hit load, and I have all my files that I burned into that image here. Okay, now I'm going to select 2, I hit load, and I have those other files in number 2. Let's move all the way to 7 that we did right there on the video. Hit load, and I have my 2 files that I burned into the USB stick as a floppy image while we were speaking. And can do the same now with 8. Load, and there you go. Okay, so message is, you can fill that USB stick with 100 virtual floppies and just leave it in the Gotek Drive and use the buttons to select the virtual floppy that you want to use, and you can have a world of sound at your fingertips using this virtual floppy emulator.